Hello, welcome to the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. I'm your host for this evening, Gary Ward. Harry will be back with us shortly. Tottenham unbeaten home run in Europe stretches to 23 games with 3 goals and 3 points against Slavia Praha on Wednesday night in the Champions League. And today I'm joined with Matt and Dustin, both one from Singapore and one from the US. So we've got a whole globe full of Tottenham fans and their thoughts and opinions on the big game this past Wednesday. Matt, thanks for joining us. You were telling me just before you did watch the game, but obviously on a school run. But you've watched it back. What's your initial thoughts on the performance?
I did watch. I caught most of the first half from my house, and then I had to leave and go pick up the kids. So I had it streaming on the phone. I was listening to it more than watching it, obviously, because eyes on the road. And then I went and watched it back just to make sure I was hearing things right and that my ears and eyes were matching up. I thought we looked pretty good. I'm aware that Slavia Praha is one of the worst teams in Champions League. They're very good in their home league, but they are 31st, I think, in the table in Champions League. And so, taking that with a grain of salt and the level of competition. But I did think we looked really good. I thought that the midfield, which has been, probably our biggest talking point most of the season, worked. I do like Archie Gray in the midfield. And then he, playing Polina in there without Betancourt. So I did think that looked good. I'm aware we didn't score in the run of play. Obviously, we had the own goal, which is now the leading scorer for us in Champions League. And then 2 PKs. But I will say that their keeper made some very nice saves. It could have very easily been 6-0 had he not made some of the saves he did. I will say, though, I was a little concerned about the defense because there was a couple of very good chances that
we will come on to that and break it down into more detail. But
they put 2 just wide, and
they put several just wide and had a couple of close chances as well. Dustin, what was your initial thoughts going into the game with expectations? Were you excited behind the game?
Yeah, I think for me it was more of like an opportunity for us to kind of do a Copenhagen, right? Which is to, and it's funny to say that because we're in the Champions League and so many people gave us grief for celebrating a Europa Cup win, saying that it was a weak tournament. But the Champions League doesn't look that strong with some of the sides that we face, Copenhagen being one of them. I think similar to Matt, I feel that Slavia Prague wasn't necessarily one of the strongest teams in the competition, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and a lot of it is still having patterns of play and still trying to create against the opposition you have. So for me, I found the lineup interesting. I think that having Gray in the lineup was good because I think when he's come on, he's performed well for us. I think that bearing in mind who the opposition is, he probably provides the best balance for us in the sense that he provides enough defensive cover while being a good player for Xavi to play off. So Bergvall is probably the best player we have offensively other than Xavi. But I feel that with him, he takes a lot of risks playing in deep 6 positions, and then he tends to lose the ball there where he is sometimes the deepest midfield player, and that puts us, we have conceded goals and big chances from Bergvall taking too much risk in deep 6 positions before. So I think that Gray is a better player for that balance of defensive cover and offensive penetration down the center. Bentancur is better defensive cover, but he hasn't really carried the ball progressively since his last major injury from Matty Cash, right? And Sar can carry the ball in straight lines, but he can't really turn while receiving. So again, a good player in the space, but not necessarily the best for chance creation down the center. So midfield wise, I was quite happy with that lineup.
Good. Simon, welcome to the show as well. Going into the game, obviously there was a huge expectation that we have the one and only Heung-min Son returning to the club to say goodbye. What was your initial thoughts on when you heard that he was coming back? Was you excited to sort of say your goodbyes and show us some appreciation for all of his long service?
Hello, Gary. Yeah, definitely. It was good that he came back to say a proper goodbye, because obviously the pre-season friendly in Korea was his last game. So, yeah, it was great to see him, and the response he got from the crowd. It's fantastic. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he invited us all to his house in America as well, I think.
Yeah,
so,
there was about 48,000 of us there.
And go over to that, don't we?
So there's 48,000 there on Wednesday, and he asked us all to come and visit me in LA. I haven't booked my flight yet, but Songy, if you are watching, I will be doing that, and I expect 5-star treatment at the next LAFC game. But it was fantastic to see him. Obviously, the memorial was outside, was kind of unveiled as well, which looks fabulous as well. And it was nice to see him back. Obviously, a little bit emotional for some fans and for him as well. Song did say quite beautifully, actually, on his homecoming. He said, "I just want to say I'll always be Spurs, and I'm always with you. This will always be my home, and I will never forget you." That gave a huge reception. And while we are getting some mixed signals, Matt, at the moment with at home's atmosphere, I thought that rallying cry from Songy before the game started really lifted things. How did that come across on TV? Because at the stadium, I felt like I could run on the pitch with him.
Yeah, it came across, I don't know. I'm struggling for, I run through a wall after that speech. It was well received. It came through very, very nicely on the TV. I don't know if he's got enough space in his house in LA for 48,000 people. I mean, they got some big houses out in LA, but that's a lot of people. It did help boost what was, I figured, missing, the reports are about 15,000 people. There's about 15,000 empty seats. But it didn't sound like it after that speech. It sounded like it was, a packed house, and it kind of, also, it helped take over the conversation because, Slavia Prague had that problem with the flag that they then claimed it was because it was a Tottenham logo on the flag and they didn't want a Tottenham logo. Whatever. You just look hateful. And so, that speech kind of took over the kind of downtrodden feel before the game, I felt like, and helped really pick up the player. And then I saw they kept cutting to him during the coverage, and so when Kudus made some of his plays that he made, Son was visibly standing up in his seat and was quite impressed. So and Odegaard got him to his feet a couple of times too, which is nice because he was playing his former position. So it was certainly nice to see him. Great. Obviously Tottenham had to have him back, right, because he left in the preseason. Didn't have a chance to say a proper goodbye. So that was nice to see him back at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for sure.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to be there. It was great to see him as well. Simon, just staying back with you, as opened on the top of the show, that win on Wednesday now extends to 23 home games in Europe unbeaten, which is fantastic. I know we all want that to start in the Premier League, but where's the differences? Why are we getting so much success in the Champions League and struggling at home, do you think, in the Premier League?
Well, Gary, I was about to say, I mean, it's totally the opposite to what we're doing in the Premier League, really. We've got a great away record, and the home record's not as good in the Premier League. But I think it possibly could be, a lot of our players have got European experience, played in a lot of the European leagues, and they know the European teams a lot better than the English teams in the Premier League. So perhaps that's why maybe we've got a good home record, as the European teams play a little bit different to the English teams, don't they? So I think that could be the reason why, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Dustin, just coming to you, Tottenham need just one win from their remaining 2 Champions League phase fixtures to guarantee a place in the playoff rounds. if we are just 1 point off the top 8 now in the table. Finishing obviously in the top 8 means no playoff games and qualification into the next round. Obviously, we've got Borussia Dortmund coming up now at home, and then an away leg to Eintracht Frankfurt. Are you confident that we can finish in that top 8?
I think we should be able to finish in that top 8, primarily because I think that, not to say that the opposition is weak, but I think that players also raise their level for the Champions League. That's a big part of it. And I think it's a combination of teams in Europe maybe aren't used to dealing with English teams in like physicality, time on the ball and stuff like that. Every player that moves to the English league for the first time says you never have any time on the ball. That's the biggest thing, and I think that's where we've seen Xavi take some time to adjust as well. So I think it's a combination of how the intensity of English teams is a bit different, but I think it's also that English players, or like our players, raise themselves for the Champions League. You can't, hear the Champions League song happen just before your game and not raise your level. If you're not going to play for a Champions League game, I don't know what you're going to raise your level for. So I think it's a combination of those two that means that we are likely to get over the line.
Yeah, Matt, coming to you. Ourselves and Dortmund are 10th, we're 11th. We're joint on the same points, just goal difference that separates us. Oh, it's actually not goal difference, sorry. It's just that Dortmund start with a D and we start with a T. That looks like it's the difference in the table there. Dortmund are a difficult side, as we know, but we are at home. And as we said before, we're unbeaten there for a long period. Are you quietly confident in that next round as well?
It's a tricky one because I was watching the score come in from the Dortmund Bodo Glimt game, and every time Dortmund went ahead, Bodo Glimt seemed to be able to tie it, and that's been the problem for Dortmund this year. Also in Bundesliga is their defense is letting them down. They can't really hold leads. So if we show up and we play like we did on Tuesday against Dortmund, I think we have a reasonable shot. We were, very much on the front foot. We looked like we had a flowing offense. The question I have is how much of a hit to our defense is not having Van de Ven for the Dortmund game, because he's going to have to miss that one on the yellow card accumulation. So that's a little bit concerning for me. Obviously, missing a key center back, and one that has the speed and the versatility that Van de Ven does. And then we'll see. Eintracht Frankfurt, I know that there's a lot of talk about them selling off some of their pieces come the January window. So we'll have to see what that team looks like following January and what we look like following January. But I could see a win and a draw in there. And I think 4 points should be enough to make a strong argument for top 8. It would certainly guarantee us, making it to at least the knockout rounds. But I think 4 points should be enough for top 8, depending on what others. Because like Chelsea thought they were going to walk in to at Atlanta and get a win, and that didn't that didn't materialize. So we'll see what happens with some other teams that may try to sleepwalk through one of the final games here.
Absolutely. So, Simon, just coming to you. The next game in the Champions League is obviously January the 20th. So we've got some time now. Potentially some recruitment coming in January, but as Matt alluded to, we're going to be without Van de Ven, and we potentially may also be without Undogi. So hopefully we may have Dragisin back. Is there some concerns for you, like slightly for Matt there, that personnel problems, or is it probably just a little bit too early to predict that?
I understand. I mean, missing Van de Ven for me is a big blow. That is a big blow. But I mean, Udogie, I don't think that would be an issue. Possibly as well, could we be missing Sarr? I know we started on the bench because isn't he at AFCON or something as well. So it's just starting to make our squad look a little bit better, I guess. But I'm confident Danso would come in and would perform good enough in place of Van de Ven. And also, we might have a little bit more. It's 20 days into January, so we might have a another player come in or another centre back. So who knows?
Well, we're certainly linked with a number of people, but let's go back to Tuesday night's game. Coming to you, Dustin, I thought this was quite a surprising stat when I read it, because being at the game, I thought we played well. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination we were incredible, but the possession was 53-47 in our favour. I actually was quite surprised by that, by the fact that I thought we controlled quite large elements of the game, but actually then going back and looking that they were in this game. They could have, if they were in that final third, if they could take those chances, this could have been a worrying performance.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's kind of like the difference between like managers' philosophy, right? So, just to like cover it off, basically, if we're talking about like Ange, Pep, their philosophy is kind of like, keep the ball and do high percentage chances. So rather than speculative long shots, take more time, create a chance where your percentage for scoring is higher, because if you take a shot that you miss, you're giving possession away. Possession is time that you can concede a goal. You have to fight harder. The whole team needs to run a lot more to win the ball back. So I think that there's a philosophy which is we control possession, we have a lot of possession, and then it's down to what we do with it. Frank has a different style, which is it's a bit more reactive. It's more about duels. It's more about we see a lot more where we punt the ball long and we hope for Richarlison to win second balls, and we hope to overturn possession high and things like that. So I think that there is a trade-off to that, which is you're a bit more solid because you're not taking a lot of risk by pushing up high, holding possession, and then if you concede possession there, you might be out of position. The flip side of that is that chance creation can suffer. You might have the possession. The other part of it is how much chances are you creating? Do you have touches in your opponent's penalty box? How much are you creating from that possession? A trend that I noticed that I thought was good was that the combinations that we had resulted in much better creativity on the left side. And in a lot of the games we've been seeing that we've been over reliant on Kudus to create chances. But it was good to see interplay between Gray, Odebear and Xavi on the left side. And I think that and Spence as well. And he also hasn't always added much creatively on the left side. But I think when you have the combination of players that are willing to take players on, play one touches with each other and create more penetration there, then you are less predictable. You can create more chances that result in you being down the center, as opposed to Kudus, which is normally down the right flank and trying to do a cutback or a cross, which is a lower percentage chance. So I think that it was good to see that. The other part where we may have had some problems was that on the right side, what we had instead was we had Kudus there and we had Paulinho. And the thing with Paulinho is that you weren't able to create as much because he's not as instinctive at creating chances or through balls for Kudus. But that's also okay because Kudus isn't so much of a player that thrives off one touches. He normally dribbles on his own. So if we're going to put Paulinho on a side, it's better he's on the right, where he's you don't rely on the player there, doesn't rely on him to break through, versus on the left where Odebear does rely more on a good passer to be able to create space for himself. So on balance, I think that our midfield combination and our flank combination in particular were fairly balanced for this game.
Yeah, I've got to say, Dustin, I think it's Archie Gray has made a difference the past two games, I think, and it's great to see him start two games on the trot. And I think he's really staked a claim to be, one of the first names in that midfield, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Si. I think that he definitely the performance against Brentford for me was excellent, and it's allowed Xavi Simons to kind of be released in a way and that have that freedom that he can roam a little bit more, because he's got someone not only behind him that has got the energy to move, that can pass the ball well too, but also it's a couple of occasions he'll make a forward run which drags a defender out, which then opens up more space for Xavi to work in. And Dustin brought up a really good point earlier where he says in the Champions League we perhaps have a little bit more time, and Xavi is used to that time being a continental player, And now in the Premier League, he's starting to understand that he can't probably take too many touches. He needs to get rid of that ball really quickly. So I really do agree with you. I think Archie Gray's really improved things for us recently. But Matt, just coming to you on one of Dustin's comments, he said that it's about the possession and what you do with it, which I think is really key. In this game, we had 16 shots, which 10 were on target, and our XG was 2.75. That's incredible coming off a few games where it was like a 0.06 or 0.07. And at one point in the Newcastle game, that first half, that first 40 minutes, it was 0.0. We couldn't get any lower. The only lower that could have been is if we didn't go on the football pitch.
North London derby was 0.07. Yeah.
0.07 during the game with Newcastle up to 40 minutes. It was 0.0 because I checked. You couldn't get any lower. There's no possibility of going lower. So this is a huge difference. In your opinion, Matt, where's that change come from?
I think it's the balance in the midfield. I think it's two things. I think one is the balance in the midfield, and why. And a point, excuse me, that I want to make about Archie Gray is the offensive part is great, but the other side of it is he also offers defensive stability. You are not trading defense for offense. With Bentancur in there, you only get defense. So you have 6 defenders and 4 offensive players, and it has to come from one direction, right? It has to come down Kudus' side. If you're playing either Polina or Bentancur and you're playing Gray, you gain offense and don't really hurt yourself defensively. I mean, look at some of those tackles that Archie Gray made that were perfectly timed and didn't get yellows and stopped the counter. And so I think the balance there, because now you're basically 5.5 defenders and 5.5 offense. I know that's 11, but I'm just saying, like, Archie Gray gives you the flexibility to go either way there and play through. And then also giving Odegaard the shot at left winger. He's really come into it now that he's getting playing time and he's healthy and he's getting a handle on the system. Because remember, he's been here for 2.5 seasons, right? He comes in, he learns Ange's system, and then gets injured and misses, a chunk of one season. And then he gets injured again and misses most of, he had the surgery and missed most of Ange's last year. And now he comes back, and now it's an entirely different system we're working with, and he's competing for playing time. And so I think if we just let Odegaard be left winger and let him grow, I think that and Gray, I think the offense is not set and not as good as it could be because there's still questions about striker and some depth and whatnot. But I think those two things have made the difference, is that Archie Gray is giving the fluidity in the midfield and through balls. And like you said, he's capable of making a run forward that takes defenders with him because they know he can cross. Like, the early cross in that game was phenomenal, and that set the tone for, we can't let this guy run into the box. He can do damage. And so I think those two things have made the difference. And if we just kind of let it marinate for a while, I think we start seeing what Frank's ideas are.
No, I agree. Simon, just coming to you, on the first sort of 40 seconds, we could have gone 1-0 up. Obviously, Odegaard with a good cross for Richarlison. He just needed to put it either side of the goalkeeper and it's in, but unfortunately it's gone straight at the keeper. Frustrating there, but we had a number of other opportunities to score as well. Were you happy with the attacking intent that we saw on Tuesday?
Oh yeah, definitely, Gary. I think especially like you said, that first 35 seconds, I was already celebrating when I saw it come to Richarlison. I'd already jumped up, and then I couldn't understand.
Me too.
The corner, how he saved it. I mean,
in fairness, it wasn't right at him; it went just off his shoulder. So had it been another 2 inches, it'd have been in.
But to me,
the story of our lives, right? An extra 2 inches is the story of all of our lives.
Take that whatever way you want.
For me, that just sums up Richarlison, though, really. If he has time to think about it and everything, he just doesn't seem to finish the ball a split second, and he always scores or scores worldies. To me, that summed up Richarlison to a T. But yeah, I think the Odegaard, as Matt said, the first 40 seconds, he just had his full back on toast then for that cross. But I think the further the game went on, he sort of fell away from the game a little bit, Odegaard, to be fair. But you could just see something has just clicked all of a sudden. And I think it's since we were saying about Archie Gray earlier, against PSG, Archie Gray started against PSG. We lost 5-3. But as Spurs fans, we're known to want to see entertaining football. We'd rather see a 4-3 win, possibly more than a 1-0 boring, own goal for us, and we get 3 points. And I'm just starting to wonder if Frank has looked at that and found out about the response that we had against the PSG game, because even though we lost, we were quite happy we actually gave them a game. So I wonder if he's tweaked things as well, just to have that little bit more attacking intent there. But as I said earlier, Archie Gray started against PSG, and he started every game since. So I do agree with what Matt said. I think he enables, as the pivot, if you want, with Bentancur or Polinia, he actually gets forward a lot more, makes deep runs, late runs into the box. And he's got the engine to get back as well straight away. So I think he's made a massive difference to our attacking intent.
If you don't mind if I pick up on something that Simon said about like Frank's response to it, right? I think that it's one of those things where the fans actually have the ability to set the tone for what the club style of play is. And, he can academically understand that, in Latin, our name means to dare is to do and everything, right? But, as a manager, he may not have completely absorbed that. And at Brentford, he might have been playing a different style where the fans respond to being able to grind out wins, but that's not going to cut it here. And I think that, his response to the North London derby and Fulham, and realizing how we really feel about style of play, and even against PSG, even when we lose, but we have a go, and seeing the response from that has allowed him to understand better about where we stand about the way that we're going to take it to teams. So even if we lose, if we make a fist of it, if we take it to teams and we show attacking intent, there's more leeway from the fans. I think that he's starting to understand where the fans stand on the style of play and what to dare is to do means.
I think it's even more that, like, and not to insult Brentford, and obviously I don't know what their full social media presence is or whatnot, but this is the difference between Brentford and Tottenham, right? It's not just the media you get and whatnot. There's responses to games. Brentford is happy being in the Premier League and being a mid-table side who doesn't have to worry about going down, and whatever gets them there, they're fine with. Tottenham clearly isn't. And so this, I think, was part of the learning curve that Thomas Frank was going to have to learn, was if you don't do things the way that we think you should be doing them, not that the fans totally run the team, but you know what I mean? Like, you're going to hear about it more here than you are at Brentford. And so I think this is part of that learning, not just learning the players and what they can do and what they offer and what setup is right, but also like, hey, losing here isn't the worst thing in the world if we take something from it and we apply it to the next game to improve. It's not about the loss. It's about the product on the field and how it looks. Now, granted, if you lose enough to finish 17th, doesn't matter what it looks like on the field. It's not going to satisfy the fans or really anybody. But that's the thing. Like, I think losing was a dirty word at Brentford, and you had to do everything you could to not lose. Whereas here, it's more like, yeah, we want to win, but we also want to see improvement and see, process happening in place.
There is a big difference in both the teams, obviously, and the clubs themselves. Thomas Frank's coming from one press conference a week, maybe two, to like every 3 days now he's doing press conferencing. He's got multiple games in a week. You know, he's got 2 pretty much every week. We're in Europe, so there's something that he's having to navigate through as well. Coming into a team that come off the back one of its worst domestic seasons in recent memory. So it's all lots of things that he's having to navigate through, and obviously coming in a way with one arm tied behind his back in one sense, because a lot of the fan base didn't want the managerial change. So he's already fighting an uphill battle. Dustin, I just wanted to hear your thoughts just on another point, that the recent upturn in better performances, I don't think we're anywhere near where we want to be or should be. Do you think that's partly down to Thomas Frank's now understanding what his first 11 is, and certainly certain players in key positions?
It's hard to draw an equivalence to better performances because the opponents are not the same, and the style of play that you're against is not necessarily the same. But I think that there is an uptick in performances, in individual performances from Xavi, for example, right? So like part of it is Xavi needed to develop. He needed to develop like relationships with players and understanding, and I think that you can't discount the vast improvement you can get when chemistry between players develops. So when Xavi knows how this player likes the ball passed to him, or that, you know, when this player does this nod to him, he's going to make a run. Those are the intangibles that exponentially increase our performance, and it's something that it needs time. So I don't think it's necessarily as much as something tactical that's happened, as much as players improve the more they play together. But I do think that there are changes in approach, right? When he used to play Paulinho and Bentancur all the time, you know, and then Xavi kind of like on left wing but not really in the center, it created a dynamic where, you know, they weren't getting the ball. There's that infamous pass map of them passing to the side and no passes to Xavi whatsoever. So I think that anything that he does to improve the creativity in midfield is an improvement. And it's not to say that you can never play certain players together, but even if you play the same players together but you give them different instructions or different tactical setups or different wingers to play with, all those can improve it. So it's not to say that you can never play Paulinho, Bentancur and Xavi in the center. It just means that you have to set that up in a way where you don't recreate a dynamic where there isn't any penetration through the center to your most creative player. Because if he doesn't get service, he can be the best player in the world. All he's doing is chasing shadows. So I think the upturn has been improvement in individual performances, but I think it's also improvement in like some setups where we're playing Odebear on the left. We are not just relying on kind of like winning second balls. So I think part of it is the more we improve our penetration down the center, and it's a drum that I've been beating a lot of times, the less we rely on Kudus penetrating down the right and have versatility in setting up chances from the left and down the center. We become a lot less predictable, because there was a period of like, you know, a month and a half where our only play was give it to Kudus and let him like beat 3 players and create magic, and that's our chance creation and winning second balls. So the more that he's developed more patterns of play and maybe some automations around, you know, we do a bounce pass here, we do a 1-2 here, you make this run, the more we can create chances down all 3 lanes and not just the right side where Kudus is, then we start, you know, having more attacking threat, having more things that create chances, and not relying on, you know, penalties or set pieces for our goals.
No, you've made some great points there, Dustin. So I just coming to you on some of those points. The first goal actually came down our left-hand side through Richarlison making a channel run, cutting it back to Kudus, who actually miscontrols it. And he normally has a brilliant first touch, goes out for a corner. And then the ensuing corner, obviously a flick on from Romero, which we've seen quite a lot recently. And then what's the defender doing there for the goal? I mean, it's a well-taken finish. Richarlison would be proud of that one. But what did you think from being in the stadium? Because I couldn't work out who'd actually scored it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, neither could I at first. I think it was just, from what I could see, I think he just, the ball come past him and he just reacted moved his head, and then it went in. But what is so good to see is how dangerous we are now at corners. In the Premier League and in Europe, because I think we can all remember a couple of years ago when we had Ericsson taking corners towards the end. He could never beat the first man, and I think we very rarely scored from corner. So every time we do get some sort of set piece now, I don't know about you guys, but I do always feel that there's a chance we're going to score from it. So whether it is an own goal or whether it's, a bullet header from Romero or Van de Ven, we'll take either, won't we, at the end of the day?
Yeah. I mean, it was very similar on Saturday, wasn't it, against Brentford? Again, a flick on from Romero to Kolo Muani at the back post, which was saved and should have scored. So we're looking dangerous on them. Matt, you look like you want to say something there, or...
Yeah, I was going to say from the replays, I had the benefit of replays on TV, and when my wife rewatched the game with me, she was a defender all the way up through college, so didn't go pro or whatever, but has a lot of, and to her it looked like who was it, Zima, I guess, number 4 for them, lost track of where he was in the box, and she thought he was further outside and was just trying to head it, past the goal line there, and it just wound up that he was in the middle of the box. But yeah, it looked like that, or he forgot which goal he was supposed to be defending, because that was a very precise world-class header off of a corner.
He made a bit of calamity of it, didn't he? Bless him.
And then he got a yellow, so it's just a bad day at the office for.
Yeah, he didn't have the greatest of days. No. They should have had a red card as well. I can't remember the player's name now. I can look it up quickly though, but one of them was probably quite lucky to be still on the pitch. That would have been Hogyu, I think his name is. Going back to some, Vicario made a couple of decent saves. There was opportunities for Slavia Prague to score, Dustin. They went quite close with an unchallenged header from about 6 or 7 yards out. I really felt that Slavia Prague were very solid defensively. They were strong. Midfield-wise, they battled well, but when they got to the final third, they really struggled, and I think that sort of summed up their whole performance, really, with that particular header. But how did you see their entire performance? Easy for me to say.
I think their entire performance, you can probably say their man of the match was their keeper, and he conceded 3 goals. So,
in grading, he is the highest graded player from the game based on, if you look at who scored, he's got the highest grade at 8.7 or something. He's higher than Vicario.
Yeah.
Keepers always have their best game against us anyway.
Yes. That's true.
Right, so I think that it's one of those things where Slavia Prague played well, but it is also generally the case where teams from weaker leagues generally lose their strikers to stronger leagues. If the striker is any good, he would have been signed by the best team in that league or poached to another league, generally speaking. So it's one of those positions where there tends to be a lot more churn, particularly when we're talking about teams that play in leagues that don't have as much money. We got lucky on a couple of occasions, and I think it's one of those things where we're making the trade-off, right? Where Spence is, marauding up the left flank in order to create chances with the left wing. Then, we're going to, and Porro is also a better creative player than he is a defender. So I think that's kind of the trade-off you take with attacking with wing backs to a certain extent. And you hope that your centre-backs and your DM can cut out the threats as they come. So on the balance of, making that trade-off, as long as you score more goals, it's fine. If you concede more, then, you're making a bet that our attacking play is better than the defensive lapses that we might suffer from. And in some games, you win that trade-off. And in other games against PSG, they have much better strikers that punish you and you lose. So I think when there is a gap of quality between us and the opponent, we should maximize that and count on having a better attacking threat. But when we know that the other team is clinical, then we have to recompute how we're going to do that trade-off, because if you're up against a team with Haaland, Ekatike, or like, you know, a striker that is clinical, then you're not going to want to necessarily make that trade-off. But if you're against Slavia Prague or Copenhagen, then yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sticking with Porro here, Simon. I thought he had a couple of went for a spell where he struggled a little bit. Last couple of games started to see a little bit more of the old Porro, and the second goal really came from him. Obviously, down into the penalty area, looking to cross the ball, was fouled, given the penalty. What did you think of Porro's performance, and then obviously the finish there from Kudus for his first Champions League goal with Tottenham?
I agree with what you said there, Gary. I think Porro has started to come back into the Porro that we know the past few games. I think there was a stint earlier this season where myself, I was vouching for Spence and give Porro a little bit of a rest. But with what Dustin said, I do agree. He offers us something going forward. Defensively, he has improved, but I still don't think he's where you want him to be as a fullback. But he always, because he assisted Xavi against Brentford as well, and when he puts the crosses in, some of his crosses are just fantastic. So yeah, he did have a good game, and Kudus, it was great to see him get on the score sheet. I expected Richarlison to take the penalty, to be honest, but I was glad to see someone else take it, really. So and it's good to see Kudus get off the mark in Europe. So.
Absolutely, and I think Porro and Kudus, Matt, are really connecting well down that right-hand side. Hopefully, we can replicate that on the left-hand side as we move into the latter parts of the season. Dustin, you were going to make a point there.
Yeah, I think to one point I want to add about Porro is that Porro is a player that plays well until we overplay him, and then he drops off a quality cliff that's very steep, because he's one of the players that we actually haven't lost to injury in like the past 3 seasons. Which,
don't say
you know,
that.
No.
I knocked on wood. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't knock on wood fast enough, to be honest.
I'm going to kiss
it. Yeah, but I think the thing about him is that, like, when he gets overplayed, the quality drops off a lot. And I think a big part of it is because what he does well is mental and not physical, right? He's not a fast player. But he reads the game well, and he crosses into really good areas. And when you're tired and you're physically exhausted, what happens is that the first thing to go is you get sloppy, you're not thinking as sharply. So I've noticed from Porro is that when his performance drops off, it's not a physical thing. It's normally like he's forgotten the defender's ghosted behind him, or his cross is just a cross into an area, not a cross to a person or to a place. So his exhaustion manifests itself in bad decision making rather than like physical deterioration. So I think the key is the cover we need in January is someone to cover Porro, and right now we're using Spence to cover both Udogie and Porro. Yeah. So we need cover for like left centre back and right centre back, and now like left centre back, left back, right back, and left centre back as well.
I would say, Justin, that I think if we could get cover for a left back in January, say, I think Spence would then be used, hopefully, most of the time just to cover Porro, possibly.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree. I was going to come to you on that, Matt. I think that we agree completely with Simon. I think if we can get a left back in, which we are heavily linked with this today with Nathaniel Brown from Eintracht Frankfurt. He's a German-American, very, very good. We're apparently very keen on bringing him to the club. Him and Udogie together, and then looking at maybe Spence and Porro. That will help with some of this. A lot of games that these players are going to be playing, and Porro does play a lot of them. Do you see that area of recruitment needed in January as well?
Yeah, I would say that defensively is a big area of need in January for coverage. We've talked about left wing. I think if Odegaard is healthy, we have enough. We have a starter and enough coverage there for the time being. Although more depth is always better, right? As much depth as we can possibly get is always better. But yes, I would say that Spence, while playing left back, he's been very good. He is a wrong-footed left back, and so sometimes it shows a little bit. And I agree with Dustin that you see the physical manifestation of Pedro Porro getting tired, but it's because of the mental fatigue that he's under, where he knows he's made of snake, and now he tries twice as hard to make up for it, and then it just makes things worse. And that's when you start to go, what happened to this guy's physical? It's not his physical ability, the mentalness and the so yeah, I would say that Porro and Kudus look very nice together on the right-hand side. I do like what I see from the play that we've seen from Gray and Spence and Odegaard on the left side, kind of as playing a three-man game of overlapping runs the last few.
Yeah, it's essentially what they're trying to do with Spence. Spence is moving into the middle, which is
the amoeba position that Udogie gets.
Yeah, so they're trying to create an overload, aren't they? So if they played with a 2 in the middle, so if we move in a fullback, it's going to be a 3v2, which we can then move out. It's this new Roman fullback position that's sort of the buzz thing around. You'll see it a lot with Chelsea. Mark Cucurella, for instance, you'll notice he just arrives in the box or he's up front. That's because he's just trying to overload the opposition. So we're seeing that a lot, but that's taxing, that's tiring. A number of times I noticed that Spence was quite advanced, that sometimes he was next to
he's in the number 10 position a few times.
Yeah, and he struggled to get back a little bit then as well. But it was
in
good.
Fact, on one of the clearances, my wife Van de Ven took the ball from Vicario out left, and she's like, "Do you guys have Van de Ven playing left back?" And I'm like, "No, Spence is playing left back. He's just up the field, and Van de Ven's dribbling, and then it's like, oh, there's Spence, and he's standing at the halfway line."
It's like, boy, it's just the overloading. They're trying to overload areas. You'll see it a lot now if you watch sort of Chelsea, Manchester City. There's a lot of overloading with the fullback. So Roman fullback is this new sort of buzzword position. But the third goal, Simon, again was a penalty. This time, I thought it was really good play through Lucas Bergvall that came on. Nice little chip ball into Colin Moani, chests it off to Xavi Simons, little knock round a defender, and then obviously tripped up. That defender should have got his second yellow then. He didn't. He then made another tackle, which put Colin Moani into the advertising board, which should have been his third yellow. He still didn't get one, but here we go. And then nice little finish just about for Xavi Simons. So what was your thought of the play leading up to the goal and then ultimately the finish?
Yeah, I thought the play. I'm a big fan of Lucas Bergvall. I thought he always offers something when he's on the pitch for us. And I thought Moani took it down brilliantly when the ball come into the box, and there was Xavi just touched it past and got took out. I was expecting the second yellow, as you said, Gary. I think the ref was just been extra lenient because I think he could see there was no way back for them, to be honest. And yeah, I can't say I was fully confident when Xavi stepped up to take the penalty. I'm more of a fan, I've got to admit. I like the way Harry Kane used to take the penalties. This, when you go to make the run, then you stutter and you're waiting for the goalkeeper to move first. I mean, if the goalkeeper doesn't move and just stands there, could we be there for 5 minutes until one of them gives in? I really
didn't we miss a stutter step PK against PSG in the Super Cup?
Probably, I think. Yeah, the shooter. The Richarlison hit the crossbar. Was that against Copenhagen? I think was it against Copenhagen? Top of my head, where he came on. And it hit for a penalty, and that was a stutter again. I'm like you, so I think we were so blessed to have Harry Kane that he just picked a spot and he smashed it, and it 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10 went in. Now these stutter, Neymar brought it in is just a bit concerning at times, and it's oh my God, please let this go in.
I mean, if I'd have been the goalkeeper, obviously he got a hand to Xavi's penalty. I mean, I honestly looked at it again on the replay, and I think he could have actually kept that out. To be fair, I'm glad he didn't, obviously. But what also worries me is, have we not got a designated penalty taker at the moment? Because obviously, you know, if we roll back the years and Harry Kane had been there, he'd have been having both of those penalties.
Yeah,
so
I think Solanke took a lot last season, didn't he? Solanke, and Maddison probably would step up as well, I guess. And
they're all injured, so.
Yes, they're all injured, Dustin.
All the ones who took, Solanke, Kulusevski, Madison all took them last year.
If you look at it, all our entire forward line is injured, right? So like all of the constant forward line players that you would prefer to take penalties have all been injured.
Yeah,
I think at some point it just became like getting guys off the mark in Champions League because we had the game pretty well under control.
Yeah, I think it's a confidence thing as well, right? It's getting Xavi that another goal. It's 2 goals in 2 games. That's back-to-back man of the matches. That's getting him more confidence. Fair play to Romero to taking the ball and giving it to him. Matt, staying with you though, we brought a previously signed player who was signed for 95 million euros off the bench in Kolo Muani. I'm a massive Kolo Muani fan. I think he's technically outstanding. Great to see him all like pretty much instantly make an impact to that game. Is this the hope now that he's playing more, that he will make more contributions to the team? Because I thought on Saturday against Brentford he was excellent.
I would go with him. Like even when Solanke's healthy, let Solanke have a long run up and getting up to game speed and whatnot. I would go with Kolo Muani as the starting 9 every time we possibly can. Not only is the play on the field great, but I also love his mentality that he gets a broken jaw. And instead of saying, hey, I could use this as an excuse to just sit here and collect money, he gets a custom-made face brace and goes back out there a couple games later and go like, I'm good. I'm going to head it. I'm going to put my face in harm's way, even though it's already broken. Like, I like that mentality. Not that I'm calling the other injured players on our team soft. Clearly, they're all seriously injured and whatnot. I'm just saying that for a guy who's on a loan and could very easily just say, hey, I'm going to take the, whatnot, he's getting out there and playing and then giving us stuff when he is out there. So I love watching Kolo Muani. I hope we sign him permanently, to be honest.
We have strikers that defy their injuries to play well. It's always a good sign. Harry Kane throwing off the face mask, Son scoring a winning goal with a broken arm. So, a striker that's willing to play through the pain and sacrifice for the team is always something that's good.
Yeah, we call these guys in the States. We like to call these guys hockey players because, at the end of the Stanley Cup, you'll always find out, like this past Stanley Cup, a guy played with
noses all over the place.
One of the guys on the Florida Panthers played in the Stanley Cup with a torn ACL. Right. Wow. And was like, all right, I'll deal with the pain. I'll get surgery later. These guys are playing with
Ricky Pooch played with a torn ACL in the MLS semi-finals. And got through it. And some of these players do. And fair play to him. But I think he really unlocks a lot of stuff for us.
Yes.
I think he was probably brought in to cover stopgap-wise on that left-hand side because he has started there a couple of times on the left. I think he's probably was brought in there. But he obviously started in the number 9 just purely because I don't think we thought Solanke was going to be out for the longer period that he is. But just finishing up on our review of the game, couple of quotes from Thomas Frank on the performance. He said, we can do even better in the future and be in more control of the game. So I'm very excited to see that. And then on Xavi Simons' performance, he said Xavi Simons is doing very well. I also like his work ethic. There was a great recovery run in the 90-plus minutes where he just got all the way back, which is critical for us, for me, for us, for everyone, to work very hard. So I like his overall performance. And I echo that. I thought he was excellent. I noticed that. I probably thought you probably would have as well. So being there, that was about 93rd minute, and he was sprinting back to make the tackle and then giving the sort of a come on to the fan. So fair play to him for that.
I like this trend a lot because it reminds me a lot of like Modric when we think of him as a creative player that has flair and controls the ball, but he got into the tackle as well. And I like that we see that from Xavi Simons and we see that from Bergvall as well, because we can't really carry passengers where you are a creative player swanning around and not putting a defensive shift in. We need every player to at least be a body in midfield, at least block passes, and the more our midfield creative players can also contribute defensively, the better it is.
Absolutely. He looks like he's put some size on as well. I saw a recent photo of him. He looked like he's put some muscle on as well. And David in the chat makes a good point that his family's now over with him as well, and that's obviously got to make a huge impact, Si, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Make him feel more at home and stuff. I just think it does take particular players. He come over. He does give over the idea he's a little bit lightweight when he first came over, but I think he's just getting used to the speed of the Premier League now. But he does, as Dustin said there, he reminds me. I remember Modric when he first came over. I mean, what a player he was. But I was there. I think his first game for us was Middlesbrough away in the league, and I went up there with my brother. And I remember watching that game, and he didn't get a touch of the ball, nothing. And my first reaction was, "What a waste of money!" And it shows how wrong I was at the end.
Yeah.
So I just think it's just taking him time just to get used to it, as it does with certain foreign players that come over. But at the end of the day, he's got the quality, and the quality will always shine through. And I think we're starting to see that now.
Absolutely. Just finishing up on Slavia Praha, Matisse Tel was brought back into the Champions League squad for Solanke. There was reports today, though, that he is unhappy at the club, which I can understand if he's been signed and then left out of the Champions League squad. But I think it was nice to see him come on again. And so he nearly scored at the end as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. He's another player who I like. I think, obviously, he was quite disgruntled, not been in the Champions League squad at the start. But he's still only young. What is he, 19, 20? Yeah. 21. So he's still going to get better. But I honestly think when he joined, he thought he might be a regular starter. And unfortunately for him, he's not getting much game time at the moment. But, we need a big squad to challenge on all fronts. And I think he can offer something. So hopefully, now he's in the Champions League squad. Hopefully he'll be able to knuckle down and be a bit happier.
Let's hope so. I'm just going to go around to each of you now, just very briefly. Your hopes for the January transfer window coming up. Matt, let's start with you. If you've got, a few bob to spend, as we say in England, where are you spending that?
I would love to see coverage for the fullbacks, specifically left back, mainly because I do think Spence can cover right back. I don't know that we need midfield help at this point because we will have Kulusevski coming back at some point shortly. We do have Dragusin coming back in center back. And then I do think we need some help up front with the forwards, either left, Odegaard is doing great, but more depth at left wing for sure, because after Odegaard, I'm not really sure where we go there. And then striker, because, if we do wind up selling Richarlison in January, as it's being rumored, and he's been linked to some MLS sides, Solanke may just be coming back then. I don't know if he will. I mean, there's talk that he's already kind of practicing, but not really. And then you got Kolomwani. So we need a striker and a fullback, I would say. If we can get a keeper, that would be nice, but I don't think that's one of the bigger I think that's probably third or fourth on my list at this point.
Si, coming to you, where is if you've got a few bob to spend in January, where are you putting that down on?
For me, I've got to disagree with Matt. For me, a left winger. I think if by chance we could get Antoine Semenyo on the left wing, I think if we get someone who's the same quality as Kudus, then obviously the opposition are not going to know. You can't double up on both of them at the same time and stuff. So I think that's, will give us so many options up front. And I think a top quality centre forward, if we could. That's for me. I do agree with the fullback positions. Maybe get a bit of backup for them. But for me, I'm looking at in January us getting a player who can slot straight into that starting 11 and improve us straight away.
Yeah.
So for me, that would definitely be left wing. And in the summer, maybe a new goalkeeper, I would say.
I agree. I did hear rumours that Solanke has either had a setback or there's been some disciplinary issues. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I've been told by a couple of people. So it might
no use asking Thomas Frank when they're going to be back, is it? Really?
No. So it might be the case that we are a stopgap in for now. I suspect Kolo Muani was brought in as a stopgap on that left-hand side to cover Song, while Mikey Moore went out and got some critical minutes this season. And then Solanke was going to be the number one and then Richarlison was going to be the backup. But obviously there's been issues there. So for me, I would love to see a player down the left-hand side. However, I don't want it to completely stump Mikey Moore's future. So I think he's got a great future at the club. So, obviously, Anton Semenyo would be incredible, but there's a report yesterday that he's apparently agreed personal terms with Liverpool and Man City. So it might be the case he's got his pick, really, hasn't he? And maybe we can't offer something. However, a left-back is pretty critical for me. I think we need cover there. So we've got 4 fullbacks, 2 on each side, but that's just personal. Dustin, just coming to you briefly, if you had a war chest available to you, where are you spending it in January?
I think that you correctly point out that left back is the area we need the most cover because even if Udogi is fit, and it's not very often, or not for long periods of time at least, having a natural left-footed left back just provides the passing angles that you need. That Spence can cover best he can, but if you have to do a trivela to pass down the flank, it's not ideal. Left centre back is another area I feel we may need cover because we only have one left-footed centre back for similar reasons. Right wing, we have Kudus there, but we only have Kudus, right? So in terms of right wing creativity, we are very reliant on one player, and the only other player that we have that plays right wing is Brendan Johnson, who can hardly get a minute and he doesn't provide creativity as much as he does finishing. So if Kudus gets injured, I don't know who plays right wing that isn't some kind of compromise. So that's one area I'm thinking about.
Dustin, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do you not think if Kulusevski was fit, then obviously I prefer him, and I'm sure other people do in the number 10, but obviously that number 10 position, we've got Maddison, we've got Xavi, so maybe Kulu on the right, possibly when he does come back fit.
Just jumping in there before you, Dustin, sorry. I actually wouldn't be opposed to seeing Kulusevski down the left-hand side. He's obviously left-footed, can go past the player as well and can drift in. And actually think that him and Mohamed Kudus actually can keep swapping. And they both can play the same roles in each fight. And I actually wouldn't be opposed to that. But Dustin, please just do let us know what you think.
Yeah, I'm not counting on players that have been out long-term injured because it's one of those things where if you count on them too much and they're not the same after their injury, then you've kind of sacrificed the ability to strengthen there. In fact, there is only one silver lining to these long-term injuries, which is Spurs is forced to buy depth that is actually good enough to play because they're out for so long that you can't buy, you can't buy superficial cover. You actually have to buy a player that's good enough to challenge for the first 11 to replace these big players being missing. What's the reason that we got Xavi? Because Maddison, and Kulusevski were both out injured long term, and that's the only reason we got Xavi. So I think that the only bright side to those injuries is that we got far stronger players over the line than we otherwise would have if we didn't have these long term injuries. That also means that because of our injury record, I don't count on players that aren't back yet because we don't know if they'll be the same. So I worry about Kudus being out, because if Kulusevski doesn't hit the ground running when he comes back, then we also still have a problem there. I feel that we have problems in centre mid and left wing for the reason that we don't have dedicated players there. We have like a mix of players that can fill different roles, and we use different piecemeal parts of combinations of players to cover those positions. For example, for striker and left wing, we have a bunch of players that can play both positions. We have Kolomuani, we have Richarlison, we have a few players that can play both, but they're hybrids. So we don't have a dedicated left winger other than Odebear or Mikey Moore that that is their bread and butter. And when you have a hybrid player, it means that it isn't their absolute strength. When you have a player that I'm a left winger, this is what I do, it means that they have a specific skill set, which is chance creation, taking on their man, pulling players out of position, and it makes a huge difference when you see Kudus, right? When Kudus is a dedicated right wing player, and you can see the difference that he terrifies the left back. The left back has to spend all his time on Kudus, and often the left centre back or DM gets pulled out as well. This means often you have 2 opposition players, or maybe even 3, that are dedicated to that, and that creates so much space. The thing with the left backs we have, or the left wing that we have now, is we have hybrid players, and they don't strike fear the same way a dedicated winger does, that pulls in opposition players because they're terrified of that. So I feel that with central midfield and left wing, we have a similar thing where we have lots of hybrid players that don't terrify defenses enough, and therefore they never commit enough people to create spaces elsewhere for us. So when Xavi gets up to speed, or when James Maddison is back, we will have a central creative player that strikes that kind of fear in defenses, and they'll all man mark him, and they'll create space for us, which is where we can get more joy. Similar with left wing. So it's weird, right? Central mid and left wing is where I feel we have lots of cover, but we all have I wouldn't call mediocre cover, but we don't have a standout player like Kudus, which is a terrifying play that defenses need to fit for. We have good cover, but not anything that moves the dial, so to speak.
No, I appreciate your insight there. Just finally, before we go, so we've got pretty difficult test on Sunday against Nottingham Forest, who are a kind of up and down team at the moment. They do sit in 17th, but at home going to be a difficult side under Sean Dyche. What's your score predictions for Sunday?
Yeah, I think we'll win. Building on the confidence we've had from the past 2 games, I'd say 2-0 to Spurs.
Dustin, just finishing with you. Predictions for Sunday?
I think it'll be either a 1-1 draw or a close 1-0 win.
Excellent. I'd like to see us a 2-0, 2-1. Definitely think finishing the year on a strong point, and then hopefully we can get a good performance at home to Liverpool as well just before Christmas. But we are going to end the show there today. Dustin, please let everybody know where they can find you on social media and all the things that you're doing right now.
All right, you can find me on Twitter or X at Luminoir, LUMINOIR, and yeah, you can just ping me there if you need anything.
And Simon, thanks for joining us. Where can we find you and all the things you're doing on social media at the moment?
Yeah, cheers, Gary. You can find me on X at Brummy Spurs, and I'm a co-chair of Dudley Spurs, and try and get loads of Legends evenings orchestrated and stuff. So, yeah, just drop me a message if you need anything on X.
That's great. I'm actually an event producer myself. I have been for a number of years. So if you need any help, Simon, please do let me know. I'm more than happy to share contacts and things for you. But thanks everybody for... Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for everyone joining us today. Harry will be back next week or later on in this week for his next chat about all things Spurs. Hopefully a positive performance on Sunday. But as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.